Good afternoon, this is Jeff with Sewer Tech Northwest. Today we are at property address 18795 Elder Road here in Oregon City. You're located at the front of the house. I describe everything as if you're standing out in the street facing the front of the home. So we're to the left of the front doorway. This thing sticks way out of the ground, so you really shouldn't lose track of it, but you're about 5 feet in from the front left corner of the house. Got a big old 3-inch ABS clean out sticking out of the ground. Got water running. We're going to zero out here at the base of the clean out. And off we go. What do we have here? You might, so immediate glance on that, that looks like you've got a root that plowed through that pipe joint there. And that's coming out, yeah, you can see them in the flow line too, right there. So, do have root penetration at the joint. The plus side in this scenario is that that's going to be at a pretty shallow depth, at least should be anyway. It's also in the yard area where it's just under grass and dirt. Another plus. That makes for a much easier repair to deal with. We do have a little bit of standing water here at the transition. We'll take a look at that here in just a second on the way out when the line is fully drained. So we're not getting, we have a lot of water shooting through the pipe right now, which can, this much water can exaggerate a 1/16 of an inch into what looks like inches of water in some cases. So. All right, there's the main, nice short sewer line, 36 feet. It's about half the length of the average line there. So we're gonna go locate really quick here while the pipe drains out. Then we'll pull back, take a second look at the standing water area. You know, if it's a minimal one, sometimes you get a level of standing water that's kind of on the fence, you know, something that's unlikely to cause an issue, unless there are, you know, some abusive scenarios going on. Whenever you've got a repair issue, a legitimate one that's very close to those areas, sometimes it makes sense just to deal with it at the exact same time, where a repair on its own would not make a whole lot of sense. So we'll see. It's one of those where if there's enough there, I may recommend you just extend that repair out a few feet and deal with it. But thus far, I think it's going to be a pretty minor little belly. Alrighty, located the camera head successfully. Line terminates on Elder Road. Line overall does a pretty darn straight shot to the main. Makes its way out to the street through the front yard. It jaunts a little bit towards the driveway and then straightens out. An ideal scenario. And this stuff you see, my camera right now is upside down. That stuff you see, top of the screen, that's actually the bottom of the pipe, is a bit of a grease and debris buildup. It's not an outrageous level of it. The line does not need jetting. And I don't think we have much more than that in here, but I like to point that out so people can see what it looks like when grease goes down the line. This is actually quite a clean sewer. I'm not trying to beat these people up. But if you do that on a consistent basis, or always dumping your frying pans and stuff down the sink, you can build up grease like you cannot believe in your sewer line. And it is after doing almost 25,000 sewer scopes at this point, and a lot of drain cleaning, grease is a very constant contributing factor to blockages happening. And it caused a lot of stuff to block that otherwise wouldn't, and or would likely break loose on its own naturally if it weren't being glued to the pipe wall with a bunch of grease. So it's a very good maintenance item to keep up on. It's about the only thing you can do as a homeowner to help improve flow. Otherwise, your pipe is at the will of Mother Nature. So the belly, and this is an extremely common location for a belly to occur, at the base of a drop at a transition. Ideally, you don't have any hard vertical drops. It often results in a belly, unfortunately. It's not the most ideal install configuration. You are better off to do a gentle gradation than a hard drop. So it starts here, it dissipates out. I'm gonna call it 6 feet. It was 5 foot 9 inches, and we're starting at 4 foot 9 inches here. So it's a 1 foot long belly. At its worst point is holding about an inch of water. So as for reference, I don't even consider repairs on bellies until there's at least an inch of water for 5 feet. That's with no water running at all. So, you know, if that's really no big deal for a repair guy to fix, I would say go for it. You know, you're going to have to dig down a little bit deeper to correct it, and they may want to, in the process of repairing this, just to help ensure that no settling issues occur post-repair after they close the trench. It may be something they want to do to help guarantee that everything goes back together properly. But otherwise, that's not a spot there that is... There's just not enough standing water there to cause problems, not unless you've got an abusive scenario taking place. Wipes, paper towels, stuff like that going down the line. All right, this one I'm going to have to just be aware. I'm going to try to guesstimate. It's not going to be super guesstimated. It's very difficult to locate on a turn. When your camera's bent like this, it often throws off kind of a weird signal. So I'm going to park my camera just prior to this thing. All right, so this is just right next to the cleanout. I wrote 2 feet down. Depth is actually, I'm getting close to about 1 foot 10 inches. It's very shallow. And now the line is finally drained off here. Take a little better look at this thing. I have a bunch of toilet flushes shooting down the pipe. So right now my camera is still kind of in a downward angle. Once I flatten the camera head off, that water line there is not even actually going over the top of my camera lens entirely. Very quickly it dissipates out. Anyway, have the repair guy watch the video. You know, not a belly I would recommend to repair for on its own, but in conjunction with a root intrusion. If it's not adding any, you know, severe cost onto things, go for it, you know. But otherwise, that kind of spot there is just not one that will cause issues unless the homeowner's doing a bit to get it there. You know, kid flushing 14 balls of toilet paper down the line, something like that. It's scenarios like that where a belly of that size could ever get to that point. You know, this thing's got a hard set of turns. There we go. Got it back through the foundation wall, and this right here, this vertical we're going to go up. This is where the line dives. We're back inside the crawl space now. This is the drop as the line dives down to shoot underneath the foundation wall. Everything from that point on is all exposed piping in the crawl space. Home inspector takes a look down there for leaks and whatnot. So I just recommend the spot repair on the root intrusion. I will notate the belly on the report. And because of the way the line dives, that repair site, you may very well expose a lot of that piping anyway. So if that starts adding thousands of dollars onto repair, I don't know that really would be worth it for a belly of that size. But if, you know, extra few $100, take a whack at it and go for it. And my marking here is red paint. You'll see a little X marking next to the near the clean out, about 2 feet deep there. Highly recommend a rescope afterwards to check the work, especially, I mean, you want to do it regardless, but especially if you end up running out to about 6 feet there to deal with the belly. You want to make sure you do that rescope after the trench is closed to make sure that, you know, you want to look at the line when there's weight on top of it. Otherwise, you're looking at everything in theory. That belly, for instance, you see there in the line, you know, before the line was buried and had weight on top of it, likely did not exist. So that's when you want to check this kind of stuff, make sure that it's holding up to the weight above it and the ground was compacted properly. Everything beyond this point is in good condition, has good flow. Because the roots are on the smaller end right now, the line still has good flow to the main, but you want to deal with that root intrusion so the line remains that way. And roots, these are when they're the most concerning, when they are right up against the house. If you block up right in front of your home like this, you have very little leeway before that water starts coming up through fixtures. Versus a root intrusion 40 feet away from the home, you develop a lot of head pressure, and those are less likely to result in the backup because of that. You start getting 40 feet of water weight sitting behind a blockage, and a lot of times that's enough to break it loose, up until a root is really big anyway. So one you want to definitely take care of. If for some reason this is not repaired, I would recommend root cutting. Right now, you won't be getting a ton out of root cutting as the roots are relatively small, but you would certainly want to be keeping an eye on them. Rescope at 1 year to get a baseline for how aggressively they're growing back, and you can kind of make a schedule on how frequently you want to be doing root cutting to keep them at bay. But first and foremost, I would fix them so that it does not become a recurring issue. Also, not a terrible idea to get rid of the bush that's right here, but most likely those roots got through those joints because they were not glued properly. So not a necessity to remove the bush, but the more plants you have in the area like this, these woody bushes like this have a root system about as formidable as a tree. So it just increases the likelihood you could have a recurring issue at some point.